Benvenute.
Recording.
Okay.
Benvenute, that reminds me of, fans. It's the Doc here and with my co-host Baron, and we're here for episode 54.
54.
54 of That Reminds Me Of. Today we're talking about The Hand of God, written and directed by Paolo Sorrentino.
Yes, and this is the show where we talk about films and the films that we were reminded of while watching the show. And there are spoiler alerts. I can't say that. There are spoiler alerts, but stick with us.
Baron, how are you, mate?
Good. How are you, Doc?
I'm good. It's the end of the year, or it depends when we release this.
Absolutely. It could
Yes.
very well be the beginning of a new year.
No, it will be the beginning
It
of
will
the new
be.
year.
It 100% will be.
This will be released in the new year, but as we record, it's the end of the year. So I'm feeling a bit sort of pumped. I'm feeling a bit holiday sort of mode.
Yes, that's a heads up that it actually does take us weeks sometimes to get our act together with editing these things and getting them out there. So we've seen the film, often a couple of weeks goes by, and that's just part of our scheduling, our rhythm, you might say.
Was that a peek inside the kimono that we shouldn't
That's
have
a
given
peek inside the kimono.
our listeners?
No,
and,
I think
and
it's
watchers?
great. I think it's great because it's true. It's what
Okay.
happens.
True story.
It is. And we are here again in the studio with Sal, the Maestro, behind
Hi,
the
everyone.
computer. There he is. And this film in particular was a suggestion from Sal. And I don't know if we would have necessarily gone and seen it if he hadn't brought it up, but it's a film that is Italian.
Yes.
And it is close to Sal's heart for various reasons, which we'll get into. And actually, we'll probably invite him on later on to have a chat about that.
Not probably. We're
We will.
gonna mix it up today. We're gonna have our first guest on the show ever.
Absolutely.
And that is our very own Maestro Salvatore. And we're gonna bring him. You're gonna get lost, and go behind the scenes, and we'll bring him actually out here to speak live.
That's right.
It's gonna make me so happy.
It'll be the Doc and the Maestro.
The Doc and the Maestro.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
Feeling threatened?
A little bit. I'm going to have to do some fancy editing just to show that I'm doing something. So expect lots of fast cuts.
Yep.
It'll be great. I cannot wait.
You got anything to tell me about how you've been the last couple of weeks? Any news? Your film Evie keeps on doing great things. I don't know if that is getting boring yet, but it is doing well.
No, it's not boring. It's wonderful. But I do have some news on the Evie front. We got into a new festival. It's actually a festival that's been around for a long time. So it's not a new festival, but we just got into this festival. It's Flickerfest, which is an Australian festival held in Bondi, and then it tours the country. I don't know if we're doing the touring part. I hope so. But we're at the festival, and of all the festivals that we've been in so far, this is the one that we might be able to actually go to in person and be there for it. So that's exciting.
That's exciting indeed.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And Bondi, I've never been there.
Dinosaurs on the big screen.
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
What about you, Doc? What's been happening?
I just remembered just this moment that I'm meant to be true to my commitment.
Where's your book?
To bring a book that I've been reading.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about it.
Good. You can just tell us about it. What have you been up to?
Okay. Well, on the book front, I've been reading Mortimer Adler's How to Read a Book, which is very meta.
A book on how to read a book.
A book on how to read a book.
Okay. And
need I say more?
this feels philosophical and like you said, meta. Like, there's a book written about reading books. And is it sort of like learning how to learn? Is that the same idea?
It's going through all the different types of reading that you can do from I've forgotten what all the words he uses are, but from elementary, working out how to just string words together into a sentence to actually really digging deep into what it means and being critical about the work and all that sort of stuff.
Wow.
All these different ways to read a book.
That's great. Is it enjoyable to read this book?
Not yet, no.
This is very Seinfeld, this whole thing. It's just occurred to me.
Well, it's a real book. It's a classic.
It's a book about reading a book.
It's been around for 100 years.
Yeah,
Or something like that. Maybe not. I'm making stuff up. But
Can I remind you that last meeting we had at work was about meeting.
Oh, meeting about meetings.
Meeting about meetings. That's true.
In the day job.
Because we all work together. And yes, we had a meeting about meetings. This was a book about books.
It's the same thing.
It is. Okay. I don't think I've added all that much to the conversation there, but that's what I've been doing.
That's great. That's great.
Yep.
Actually, I have a book to add to the list.
Yes.
Which I don't understand any of. You know, maybe you having read this book on reading books, you could take more of it in than I've been able to.
I'm sure I bring a lot to the conversation. Yes.
Great. So I've been just really struggling my way through Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. Just so hard. It's so hard. It's great. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure there's loads of really intelligent things in there, and I'm picking up maybe 1% of it.
I think stick with it. Like I've read some of Nietzsche, but I've not read that because I think I've told you that I like to do them in order. So I'm going from the birth of tragedy and working through.
Wow.
But I've found him fairly accessible as far as these crazy philosopher types go.
Well, yes, I guess, yeah. I mean, I should admit that I'm listening to it as an audiobook and it goes at a clip that I don't think my brain can keep up with.
Maybe you need to reduce the speed on the audio.
Maybe I need to just actually get the book and spend some time and like highlight sections and then spend like a day contemplating that paragraph, you know?
No. What you need to do is first read Mortimer Adler's How to Read a Book. That's exactly the type of book that he's talking about.
Right.
It really is how to get the most out of a book and understand it properly.
So good.
And you know what books you can skim, what books you need to sort of slow down with.
This is not a skim book.
It's not a skim book.
No. Clearly.
It's not a 1.7 speed on Audible book.
No.
It's a
Hell no.
Do it at its own pace.
Yeah. But you know what? That being said, there are little bits and pieces in there that I've picked up from it that are pretty great. So I'm going to stick with it.
All you need is a quote or two.
Yeah.
You look smart.
That's right. Just drop it in the right places.
Drop Nietzsche.
Perfect.
Let's talk about our film for today, which is called The Hand of God. That's the English version. In Italian, and the Maestro will...
Are you going to give this a crack?
Please. I'm going to give it a crack just because I find it intriguing.
Great.
The Italian name is A Strata la Mano di Dio. Shush.
Something about the man of God.
Well, I understand la mano di Dio meaning the hand of God.
Oh, okay. But isn't mano, but mano in Spanish is man. So in Italian it's hand.
It's hand.
There you go.
Yeah, that I know.
Okay.
But the prefix, like the estata, I guess that's the state of the hand of God or something like that. Now, I don't want Sal to interject here because when he comes on, I want to ask him about it.
Are you going to ask him about it later? Okay.
Yeah, but
we'll come back to this.
Intriguing that the Italian title...
He's dying over there right now.
I know he is.
Really, really wants to say something about
this.
He
does. No, silenced.
Later.
Yep. I find it intriguing that the Italian title is different to the English. I know that would happen a lot, but I'd like to know the reasons why and if Sal has any theories on that.
Okay, great. So that'll be in the second half of this podcast. All right,
correct.
Great. Good. Sorry, man, you're going to have to wait for a little bit on that one.
So where do we start with this film? I suppose we start with synopsis, do we?
Yeah.
As always.
Let's do it. And I think it's your turn.
It is my turn, and I'm going to...
And actually, I think this film needs it. So some films we just jump in, right? We just start getting into it because it's widely out there. It's a Marvel film or something, right? This one, I think it needs a little bit of an intro.
Well, I'm going to give it a Wikipedia intro and I'm going to just read it straight off as we do, because I remember early in our series we made up our own synopses and that soon just showed that we couldn't write synopses.
We weren't good at the succinct synopsis.
Correct. Okay, The Hand of God, in Italian, it was the hand of God. That's what it means. It was the hand of God.
Great.
Wow. Is a 2021 Italian drama film written, directed and produced by Paolo Sorrentino. In the 1980s, young Fabietto lives at home in Naples with his father, Saverio Sciascia. And
This is great.
This is great. How am I going?
Normally, Sal, we get to destroy all of the names and there's nobody in the room who can correct us in the moment. But we're going to be very aware of the fact that we're destroying every Italian name and term in this. And Sal's right there, the Italian guy.
I feel really self-conscious, like, we're going out to whoever in the world wants to watch us. So but I'm normally fairly relaxed.
Absolutely.
I'm really nervous now with knowing Sal is just there listening to this crap.
Well, just give it your best. I think if you do it with gusto, you're good.
Okay. So in the 80s, young Fabietto lives at home in Naples with his father, Sav, and mother, Maria. He doesn't have many friends or a lover and wants to study philosophy in college. For the time being, he's mainly listening to music and watching Diego Maradona playing for his own home team, Napoli. His brother, Machino, takes him to acting auditions and sympathises with his affection for their emotionally troubled aunt, Patricia.
This is a long one.
Then tragedy strikes and the Scisa family and Fabietto comes of age in a cruel and brutal manner.
Okay.
That's not that bad. I think you were premature in saying that was too long.
It was, well, I thought it was going to go beat by beat through the first, through the whole thing. But then it wraps it up suddenly.
Okay,
that's cool.
Which is a little bit like the film.
It is a little bit like the film. In fact, we can talk about that a little bit more, I think.
Let's cut all that. What did you think?
Well, I've got a few things to say about this film, but, one thing that's really clear is it's like a love letter to Napoli or Naples. This is a dude in his 50s who's come back to his hometown. He was there. He grew up there. He was there for the first 37 years of his life, apparently, which is actually quite...
This is Paolo you're talking about.
This is Sorrentino, the director.
Yeah, Paolo.
Paolo, sorry, yes.
What, you're not?
Yes. I call him Sorrentino. I know you call him Paolo.
We're very affectionate in the Mediterranean.
Yeah. He's come back and this is like a love letter. That's what it feels like. And the first half of the film is very much a kind of meandering set of like memories, and it's all about family and small town stuff and gossip and all those little memories that burn themselves into your mind as a young person. That's what it feels like. And then the halfway mark hits and it becomes a different film on some level. And I thought that was really interesting because we talk about structure quite a bit. In fact, in June, we talked about it quite a lot. This film doesn't have a standard structure on that level. It really takes its time in that first half. And I found it a little challenging at times, honestly, like a little bit hard to stick with it because I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know what was happening. Didn't know, when something big was going to happen to this main character, Fabietto. He gets called Fabio towards the end, right? Anyway.
As is its coming of age story. So
yes.
he's going from Fabietto to Fabio.
To Fabio, exactly. I was just wondering, when's something going to happen to this guy? And then halfway point, bang, and the film takes off. It's really interesting. What were your thoughts?
Well, do you think it was even a sense of what's going to happen to this guy? I thought the first half of the film was more vague than that. I could barely distinguish him as the main character. It was like it was just this rollicking, crazy chaos of just Italy, Naples in the 80s. And it was only when the tragedy strikes and he's the one that is dealing with the tragedy that a sense of plot actually comes in.
Yeah.
Before that, it's scene setting. And I think structure is definitely the key interest in this film.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's so unconventional to us, I suppose, who are used to, Hollywood beats.
Yeah.
And I wonder what it would be like to the Italian audience who are perhaps maybe, and I'll have to verify this with Sal when he comes on, but maybe a bit more used to some of this unstructuredness and having a story emerge out of chaos.
It definitely has a European flavor to it. But if you think of all the European films that we've seen since we started doing this podcast, they all still have pretty standard structures to them. Like the main character is established pretty early. Something goes wrong at the inciting incident. Something happens at the first act turning point. Like you can kind of map it out and it kind of makes sense. This film, really, the first act is half the film.
Yeah, and the inciting incident is halfway through.
Yeah, it's really interesting and it's very unusual. And I think for that reason, I was getting a bit itchy in the first half. I was sitting there going, I'm enjoying the characters, I'm enjoying the world, but like something's making me itchy. Like I need something to happen. You know what I mean?
But you stuck with it, and I was equally itchy.
Yeah,
like I was thinking, what's going on here? Where's it going? Yes, I'm enjoying it. Introducing all these quirky people.
Yeah,
cool, great scenes. But what's the point? But I think then when the point hits you between the eyes, and you're already invested in this world, broadly speaking.
Yeah,
and there's no hint of what the inciting incident might be. And then all of a sudden it's there.
Yeah.
And the movie changes. I think all that lead up, adds some flavor and adds some impact to it. Like you feel like you've been surprised as well.
Normally we start talking about elements of the story, and I think this one's a little bit harder to do that with because there is that meandering quality to it in the first half. But I can pinpoint two main characters, and I think these are the two who the story belongs to. It's Auntie Patricia, Patrizia, and Fabietto, right?
Yes.
So Fabietto is the boy who you're following.
Yep.
He's basically the young Sorrentino. He even looks like Sorrentino. Like did you see the little 8-minute behind the scenes video?
No, I didn't. No.
I'm watching the 50-something-year-old Sorrentino walking around. I'm like, that's him. It's him.
Oh, wow.
Like if Fabietto grew up, he would look exactly like that guy. So I just thought that was funny casting and kind of cool because it is clearly his childhood.
Well, imagine you're him, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's semi-autobiographical and you're casting yourself.
Yeah.
You're going to look for someone who looks like you, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But maybe a bit cuter.
Probably a little bit. He kind of reminded me of Timothée Chalamet, actually.
Me too.
An Italian Timothée Chalamet.
I had the same thought. Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
He had the same way of kind of lurking, like kind of being smoldering and being moody in the corner. Like he had that same thing that Timothée Chalamet has.
Maybe it's a universal millennial or whatever they are.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah. But you start the film off with Patrizia.
Yep.
She's just got the nippliest scenes I've ever seen ever. Like she's on the side of the road with this dress and it's just all nipples. And I think Edith and I were both like, whoa, what's going on here? What's this all about? And you quickly see that she's going through some stuff with her husband. She's got some mental issues. There's a weird moment with the little monk, which I hope Sal can explain later to us.
Yeah.
And then she gets in a argument with her husband, and the two meet. Fabietto comes in, meets her.
Yeah.
She's got one boob sticking out. He's smitten, instantly in love. I don't know if it was the boob or just her in general that he's in love with. I
think the former.
Okay, great. And then from that point onwards, their fates are intertwined.
Yeah.
And even though things are going on, this is the storyline that I can hold on to, right? It's these two.
Yeah.
Even though we have half the film is family gatherings and we're going to meet a weird uncle or a weird new love interest, and he turns out to be the strangest personality ever, and like all these things are happening, right? There's cigarette smugglers and all this. It really comes down to his love affair with his aunt, who's not, I don't think she's really his aunt, right? She's just married to his uncle. I hope so. I can't remember. Okay. I know there was a moment when Edith and I were like, is that his aunt, or is that like, what are we talking about here?
I don't think I even thought to differentiate that. I just assumed he was a adolescent that it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
who she was.
Classic. But the first half of the film, if you notice, was all about his love affairs.
Yeah.
There's Maradona and there's Patrizia, and then there's the first act turning point, which actually is in the middle of the film, which is his parents dying suddenly. And the second half of the film is about him growing up and becoming the man he's going to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Completely. I probably wouldn't have defined the first half as being Patrizia so relevant. Like she's clearly relevant, but I wouldn't have thought it's the story of Fabietto and her, but she clearly is an undercurrent through the whole thing. And I think those nipples at the start, that's a conscious decision by the director, and they're important nipples. Like they're telling you that sex is an important through line of the film.
And
so
it is.
We had the same experience watching it on Netflix. That wow, what on earth is that necessary?
Whoa, I know. Headlights, big time.
Yeah,
like just it's like he got the biggest headlights he could find, banged them on, and was like, "I'm making a statement."
Yeah, but it was a statement. Yeah, I hate to dwell on it, but it was. Yeah. It needs to be dwelled on because it was a conscious decision.
Absolutely, and her naked body plays throughout like the rest of the film, which is really interesting, and just sort of the way he sees her as a person, meanwhile she's dealing with all these mental illness issues. That's interesting. I don't think I've even managed to unpick all of that stuff yet. Like what is trying to be said with this film. I think I've got a chunk of it, but there seems to be a lot of little moments in there that I haven't necessarily pulled apart yet.
With the relationship between them or broadly? Because I would argue that there's not much to unpick. I think it's important to put it out there that this is a young bloke and the older woman who he's obsessed with. Yeah. But I don't think there's much more to it than that.
I actually agree with you. Tell me what you think about the midpoint of this film. So we've got the parents dying, and then we have, in my mind, the standout scene of the film. Although I think the director probably has another one in his mind as the standout scene of the film, but there's definitely a scene that hit me, and that's with the older woman upstairs.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me what you think about that.
Well, let's start with the midpoint.
Yeah.
Because I think they're probably the two standouts for me. In the first half, I think I said it was started with chaos and you couldn't quite make out where the storyline was going. But in that first half, you gradually start to have an affinity and a better understanding for the father and the mother as people, as characters. Like the mother starts off as just a random Italian mum.
Yeah.
And then you see her evolve in a beautiful way, I think, where she's a practical joker and and you see more about their relationship and they start to really build as characters. And that culminates in this scene where she plays a practical joke, hiring someone to dress up in a bear costume and scare her husband. And that all plays out. And then they're asleep and you've got this image where the bear is at their door. And that just felt like a moment of magic realism, because the bear, I don't think the bear was at their door. They were sleeping, they were drifting off, and we didn't know what was going to happen there, but clearly they're about to die. Yeah. But it felt like magic realism, and then once you know what's happened, you interpret it as, okay, they've drifted off forever. I really like that, the way that shift was handled midway.
There's also a little reference in the hospital. The doctor comes out, and I love that it took 3 doctors to tell them.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was a nice little human moment. Another little human moment thrown in there. But there was a scene when the final doctor said, the last thing that your dad said was no more pranks, something like that.
That's right.
And so I just wonder if that bear is in his mind as he's dying, he's imagining that prank again or something. Honestly, I got a feeling that a large part of the first half of that film was about setting up the love of the parents, and you're meant to love them so that when they die, you feel the loss that the son does. But also just that their life, even though he's a bit broody and moody. Broody. Yeah. Even though he's a little like that, his life is great. And the first half of the film really sets up, it's a big, wild, crazy family, but overall things are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So you're meant to really feel the loss of all of that.
And you do, don't you? I felt it.
Yeah, I did. I found parts of that I could feel the director's hand a little bit. It just felt a little like I was being fed, love these two because I'm going to kill them later. You know what I mean? Like I could feel it a little bit.
I did not feel that at all.
Yeah.
So you've probably been more perceptive than me. I just didn't see any significance of them, and I just thought these almost secondary characters are being developed in a really nice way.
Yeah.
So I didn't see it coming. So it had what I expect is the desired effect.
Yeah.
Where I was quite emotional once they kicked the bucket.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think it was the whistling that did it for me. That was one step too far.
You can't introduce whistling and expect to get away with it. Usually can.
That's great. But you know what? What was really successful was that the whole family was a family you wanted to be around. You know, I could see what he was building us up for here, and it worked really well.
So I sidetracked us there with that midpoint sort of moment that I was so desperate to talk about.
Yeah.
But you were keen to get to the saucy scene towards the end between the old woman and Fabietto, soon to become Fabio.
Yes. And this might say more about me than anything else, but
likely.
The scenes that really stood out in this film for me were all sex related. You know, there was the opening with the aunt. There was this scene that came.
The scene on the boat.
The boat scene
was sexy.
Very sexy. And also just, you know, something that sticks in your mind. For one, the director's doing that on purpose. He wants to plant these seeds, these images that are clearly in his head.
Yeah.
And burn them into your mind as well. And he does it so successfully. But the one that's to stand out for me is the old lady that lives in the building. Is she a countess or something? Do they call her the countess or something like that?
In any apartment building, there is always the countess.
Oh, is there?
Wow.
There is always the woman of the family that thinks they are the nobility, they are the rich one. Or
Okay, great. So this is part of the culture that he's that is relatable. Because that's the other thing is watching this, particularly the first half, you get a sense that this is a film made for people from Naples.
You do.
You know what I mean? Like you're watching it going, I feel like I'm missing some of the cultural references here. Like not in a deep way, not like I don't get it, but that I probably won't get it as much as someone from Naples does. You know, like all these characters that we're seeing are classics from Naples.
Yeah, that's so true. I think we get it enough to enjoy it. And it's good filmmaking, really, because you really can tell that, look, I don't know what Sal thought about it yet, but I'm imagining, and we'll soon know, that he will have loved it.
Yes.
And have thought that this is just his childhood on the screen.
And he'd be like, what the hell are you guys talking about?
I really love your analysis.
Okay, good.
It's incredible. I really like it. I mean, I'm Neapolitan. I know what he's talking about, but I really love your way to analyze this movie.
Okay,
from
cool.
a completely different perspective and from a completely different cultural background.
Awesome.
Wow. So maybe that's one new subscriber. Have you subscribed yet, Sal?
Well, I'm therefore looking forward to your analysis. It's going to be great. Yeah,
that's high praise indeed.
Absolutely. So okay, let's talk about the scene.
You want to talk about the sex scene?
Let's talk about it.
I thought we'd done it, but no. If you want to talk about the sex scene,
spoiler
that's fine.
alert for everybody. This is the scene of the film in my mind, right?
Okay, I might need to
top up, my friend.
Top up. Yeah.
Okay, so the countess discovers that the young man is moping about, and I don't know if she knows he's a virgin, but she probably just assumes that he is.
I think she's been tipped off.
She's been tipped off. Yeah, she invites him to her room. I can't remember what the pretense was.
No, I don't know either.
But anyway, whatever it was.
To get rid of the bat.
To get rid of a bat, that's right.
Yeah, there was a bat in the room, yeah.
And when
that old chestnut.
And when he goes into her room, she's in there in her sort of nightgown lingerie type thing.
Interestingly, there is a bat.
Was there?
So that's not made up, that there's a bat there. So maybe she's planted the bat.
I forgot the bat. I forgot the bat. I was probably just going, wait a second. This is a little bit, you know.
Am I imagining things? Sal, was there a bat?
Was there a bat?
There was a bat.
Okay, there was.
Okay, that'll do.
It happened.
Okay,
good. Thank you.
Good. Well, anyway, the whole pretense is to get him into the room so that she can pop his cherry. But the way she does it, first of all, she's like, brush my hair.
Yeah.
She gets him to brush her hair. And then she's like, now, what did she say? Brush my slit. I think that was what she said.
Yeah,
or at least that's the translation.
I don't think I can say that on public radio or whatever we are doing.
And then he's just like, oh, I guess. Why not? it's just the whole thing. And then the real clincher is when they're about to have sex and he's sort of looking at her in the eyes and she's like, no, just bury your head in my shoulder and imagine someone you love. And the person he imagines is Aunt Patricia.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It was
beautiful. All of it.
Beautiful.
I thought it was great. And it's a real turning point for him.
Yeah.
Because he's just lost his parents. He was floating before that. There was all the kind of floaty stuff. Now there's some direction and he kind of knows what he wants. After that, he's after being a director, there's a girl that he wants. And he lets go of Patricia, which is part of him growing up. He lets go of her along the way. So it's cool. And I think that's the turning point. It's actually, yes, it's his parents, but I think that's the moment where he sort of becomes the man that he's going to be, or starts a journey.
I've got so much to say. I don't know where to start. I wondered if it should be the turning point. You know, like this comes back to all the sexiness from the first scenes with the headlights on and everything of how important sex is to becoming a man.
Right.
You know, and his father was essentially giving him this message as well. Like, you know, just get it out of the way, dude. However you do it, just get it done. I don't know how much,
But
you know.
the funny thing is also the way the Countess, she does that. It's like she's thinking the same way of his father. Now you take it away. You're done. You take it away. Now it's done.
It feels like more cultural stuff.
It's a cultural thing that, yes, not just the father, but the Countess, everyone buys into, and it's a rite of passage. It's a different vibe. Like imagine that's in our culture. That just wouldn't feel quite right. But in this culture in the 80s, it was a kindness that she did. And what I also liked is you don't realise it's such a kindness from the outset, do you? You think that maybe she's just this horny old woman taking advantage of him.
Yes.
And then gradually you see, no, she's really just doing this for him, which is weird, but nice.
Yes, and that feels again like Sorrentino's sort of aware of the differences between then and now, and he's playing with it throughout the film. Yeah,
I wonder if it's then and now or if it's just here or there.
As we're going through the second half of the film, we build to this whole meeting with the director that he admires. He's become sort of Fabio, I guess. We'll call him Fabio from here, right? And he wants to be a great director. I've forgotten the name of the director that he's kind of...
Antonio Capuano.
Capuano.
Yes.
Capuano. Yeah.
He gets to meet him and they have a big moment. And I did watch that little 8-minute thing with Sorrentino afterwards, and he said that was the big scene of the film. You know, like that's the big moment. And in my mind, that's not the big moment. But I think for him, as the director, I came to the conclusion that maybe there's a statement here in the second half of this film in particular that is the older director speaking to the young director. Did you have any of that sort of vibe from this?
It's funny you mentioned that scene because I had completely forgotten it. I didn't have it in my mind to mention or anything, but now that you've mentioned it, my reaction while watching it was, oh, okay, this is autobiographical. This is the director talking about a moment in his life. And
where he actually met an older director.
Yeah, and it sort of lost me a bit there because it felt too autobiographical. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I assume it is, but it felt a little inserted to me and it didn't do any damage, but I didn't go away thinking it was a momentous moment. So if the director thought it was, that probably plays into it, to my interpretation, that it's massive for him, but maybe not for the audience.
Interestingly, I had your initial response to it as well. I kind of went, oh, it's, you know, it's just a moment in the life of this young person.
Yeah.
But then I saw the little 8-minute thing that he did after, where he talked about his feelings on this film that he'd made and what he was trying to say.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me, that's when I started thinking, actually, every character in this film, or all of the male characters, could be him, you know, like him sort of talking to himself. And I just got the sense that the older director is him as the Academy Award winning director speaking to the guy who's just about to kick off his career as a director. And he's saying, you got to have balls. You got to take it by the balls. You got to have something to say. You can't just sort of faff about. Really, I think that's how that scene started to play for me.
Yeah. I think, Alex, you're right. There is a bit of a dialogue from young Sorrentino to old Sorrentino.
We want to now talk about what it reminded us of,
which
could be, I think, a good opportunity to perhaps bring the Maestro, the man behind the scenes,
yes, indeed,
out to the front for you to get lost for just a few minutes.
I'm going to go edit for a little bit.
Wow.
And you guys are going to talk about reminds me ofs, and then I'll come back again afterwards.
Okay, so we'll hear the references from the Maestro, then we'll bring you back and we'll talk about ours.
Brilliant.
Lovely.
All right. Watch this edit where I'm going to disappear. And Sal will
okay.
appear.
Let's see how smooth we can make it.
Holding a drink just like this.
Maestro.
Here I am.
Maestro, is that what you look like?
This is when you, or that is a podcast and not a video podcast. So it's me. So
I think our subscriber numbers are just going to shoot through the roof.
I don't think so. Actually, they're going to go down.
I see you brought a little friend
this
here.
This is my statement.
Limoncello.
This is my limoncello. It's from near Sorrento.
Okay, well, I wouldn't mind trying some just to get us started, if that's okay.
It is, my mom used to do the limoncello, so it is a quite, different from, this is a bit of an industrial one, but it's actually pretty good.
Wow.
But that's
do I sip or scull?
Sip.
Sip, okay.
So this is usually a limoncello. It's after lunch, heavy lunches, dinners, etc.
Okay.
Supposed to help to digest. Actually, I'm gonna put
so not typically straight after or in parallel with a vodka Red Bull.
Yeah, no, it's more. Yeah, it's after the coffee.
Sorry, Baron.
Yeah, sorry.
On tools back there.
That's all right, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So enjoy it.
So it reminds me of.
Yes.
This is why I'm here, because it's actually remind me of my childhood as well. Because with Sorrentino, I have in common that we all come from the same area. He's from Momero, I was from Momero. So same suburban area. Same kind of family, middle class, because his dad was a banker. Yep. So my dad wasn't a banker, but we all grew up in that same area. So that's why he was in my heart, because Sorrentino, talking about his life, he's in Naples, but he's actually in Naples, my Naples.
Wow. So I was just going to ask you about Naples, but it goes deeper than that. This is actually feels like you're part of Naples.
Yeah, because they think of Naples, and actually Sorrentino also explained that, and it reminded me that you live in an area called Bomero. Okay, that was the middle class, but then you take a little train. It's called Funicolare. You go down in the center of Naples, and Naples is totally different. So it's completely different reality. Where you grow up, it does have a really important part of your formation as a person, the way you form as a person. And I don't know if talking about difference with Australia or whatever, but it is really important in Italy. Rome, Naples, they really have an important part of who you are.
Yeah.
This is probably why in this first half, you see all these kind of characters. They remind me of my family. The Sunday lunch that they have at that amazing terrace, it's something that I lived with my family too. We used to be 2, 3, 4 families united together every Sunday, having a huge lunch that started at midday, 1 o'clock, and finish at 5, 6, you're still eating. So this is part of our cultural life, and all these kind of different characters, the crazy auntie that always really upset with everyone. It was really funny.
Hey Sal, gotta ask, what was she eating?
The mozzarella.
The mozzarella.
Mozzarella.
And I have to be honest. Oh my God, I'm in video telling this thing. But if you think, you want to die, I want to die like the lady that was eating the mozzarella, because that's my passion. I mean, it's actually the only thing I can't find here in Melbourne. You can find an amazing pizza, you can find an amazing place where you can have a fantastic pasta, etc., cheese, prosciutto, all these kind of things, but you can't find a fresh mozzarella like the one that she was eating.
Wow.
Because the way they treat here, they pasteurize, whatever. But even if, you fly 24 hours, you have 3 meals during your journey, you land in Rome and then you catch a train, you go in Naples, you're still full. But when I go in my house, my mom will make me find a nice fresh mozzarella. That is a typical thing. And I'm going to eat it. And actually, I can eat one entire mozzarella like that in a blink of my eyes. Absolutely. Even if once I left Melbourne 1 week before, the doctor said, Salvatore, be careful, you got a bit of cholesterol. Come on. Don't worry about it.
So we asked the question what it reminds us of, and you're just saying flat out childhood.
Childhood, everything. In the 80s, there was Maradona was a big thing in the city. I still remember the way, the call that his dad received from his colleague in the bank, and he's telling, okay, we got all the money ready for to give to the Napoli soccer. In that time, during the night, all TV channels, they were giving the news. Maradona is for Napoli. Napoli bought Maradona. It was 2:00 in the morning, and we couldn't believe it.
So this is something that Alex and I didn't talk about, is how central the soccer, the love for bloody soccer, and for Maradona in particular, and the impact that had on the community. Yeah. I imagine to you that these are central points in your history.
In our history, because Napoli has been always seen as a poor city.
That came across.
It's the one that is always not really organized, crazy, organized crime. Something that even the documentary of Maradona, they didn't touch. But we just need to remind that in 1980, in Naples, there was a huge earthquake. Naples and region, Campania, there were 3,000 people died. It was massive. And when lots of money went in that city, but organized crime diverted all this money. So there was like a rebuild situation in that city. And in all that rebuilding, there was also the arrival of Maradona. And Napoli playing in other stadiums like Milan, Turin, they always was lots of racism. It's still happening. But it was like a bit of revenge. When Napoli finally won the Scudetto, was the demonstration that actually Napoli can be a city and Napolitans can be organized, can do something good. Is when they want to do something, they can do well, and they can do better, And was a clear message to Italy that they're winning, that it's the revenge of bit of the poor side that actually says, no, we're actually pretty good.
That came through. It's almost like the coming of age of a city, of Napoli, not just of Fabietto.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask before was the Italian title being, it was the hand of God, and the English title just being the hand of God.
I don't know why they call just the hand of God, but it is quite important, and it's mentioned in the movie as well.
Yep.
When the parents died and at the funeral, one of the uncles go to him and says, actually, it was the hand of God that you actually alive, because he went to see Maradona at the stadium. He didn't go on the weekend with his parents. If there wasn't Maradona, he would go with his parents. He would be dead. So
I didn't pick up on that.
That reference, it was the end of God, is actually like a miracle for you. You are alive because of him.
Yeah, wow. One thing I was wondering with your growing up in Naples, there was some scenes where Fabio was with that crazy guy on the boat. He befriended that bloke.
That is an incredible, that was something that was always present in the 80s for us. When these blues boats, the smugglers in the Gulf of Naples, and they are marked, and most of the time actually are during the night because so they're not visible to police or Guardia di Finanza. And I remember it was almost like a meet for us, those people, it wasn't like a meet. They were on this huge, incredible boat. They were fast.
So you recognize this guy who I reckon looked like a sort of chubby Anthony LaPaglia.
Immediately. They were like almost like heroes for us.
Yeah.
When I saw the scene, I said, oh, Jesus, I really forgot all about that. And it was really important thing. We remember that, the sound, and you look on the Gulf and says, oh, look, that's the blue motor scaffold, the blue one. So I remember that. And it's quite interesting, the figure of this guy, that how important is, unfortunately, where you grow. And I think it's that scene when he cross and see the rich people on the same kind of boat, but they're not even half capable of what he is.
Yeah.
He could be a really sports hero, great driver of this huge boat.
Yeah.
But he couldn't, because he was born
in the wrong side of the tracks.
Exactly.
Yeah. When they went, was it Stromboli that they went to with all the volcanoes?
That was even another mind-blowing for me, because I went to Stromboli too with my friends. And every time I describe Stromboli, it's the same way he described it, the Stromboli. Every 20 minutes, that volcano explode. I don't know now, but at that time, camping wasn't allowed. So you could get off the ferry, and you will have a policeman and says, where do you live? Do you have a house here, actually? And lucky, we and my friends, we met a girl that actually said, they're going to stay with me. We got a house here. She was a Belgian girl. But we actually went to sleep on the beach.
Just like they did.
Yeah.
Just
like they did. So I wake up in the morning, and I knew that every 20 minutes there is that volcano that explode. That was my first trip on my own with my friends when I was almost 18. So that's why I always relate, and I basically relate a lot with the director and all the 80s and the atmosphere that he described. And they're very distracting. This is why also, Alex, the first half, all these kind of people. But because in your daily life, you're surrounded of these distractions.
They're all crazy, yeah?
They're all crazy. And there is also, when it's not crazy, most likely it's got something background. You see his father. He didn't look crazy, but he had an affair with another woman. He probably he probably has a sister or a brother somewhere else. So, and there is always that dark side of people around.
Yep, stories within stories.
Stories within stories.
Yeah. One thing I want to know, 2 points. First of all, Maradona. So I know Maradona is just some great soccer player, but there was a quote. He added poetry to football. It was like high literature. Is that really what Maradona was like? Was it
for us? He's a saint.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
It's what it felt. It's a religion. Don't touch Maradona for us. It's just the most important. If there is a huge murales on Maradona by Joliet in town, it's just amazing. Now, when Maradona died, the official stadium of Naples, it's Stadium Maradona. And it goes from St. Paul Stadium
to Maradona Stadium.
It says everything.
Well, is there yet a Little Monk Stadium? Because if we talk about religion, the Little Monk comes up, and that didn't. Look, I took some things from the Little Monk. I like the fact that at the start it was very mysterious, and at the end it wasn't so mysterious. I interpreted that as a coming of age and no longer dealing with myths. But what does the Little Monk actually mean?
Okay, the Little Monk, Munacello, it's actually a spiritual figure. And I have also a memory of when I was a child. They always talk about the Munacello, the little monk, which is like a very cheeky little monk. That's the way we see that little figure. And it's appear and explain things that happen suddenly in your house that you can't explain. Like in our legend, in our family, there is a legend of my dad, when he was a kid, my grandmother, my nonna, found him in the bathtub, okay? And she couldn't explain how he ended up there, and they say it was the little monk, all right? So that's the funny bit. It's not a bad spirit. It's actually pretty cheeky, funny, but it's not bad. But funny enough, to try to explain Little Monk in English, I found on Wikipedia an explanation that explains a lot in the movie. And it's actually written here. And he appears to people always at the dead of the night, only to those who are in sorest need.
Okay. So Patrizia.
Like Patrizia.
Yeah.
But also when Fabio leaves and is on the train, that's another moment where he needs, and it's also reassuring because that's the meaning. It helps to go to your sorrow.
Yeah, okay.
So that moment when he leaves Naples, he's actually living in sorrow and to go into a totally new life.
Is he, I felt that he was kind of getting rid of the little monk. Like it was
like
no
reassuring,
longer.
you don't need you anymore, but
Yes.
it was reassuring, like things is going to go well.
It's the coming of age where that's sort of behind him.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's also because the auntie explained that she saw them. He's the only one that believes that she actually saw him, and the auntie actually says when she saw him, she got pregnant.
So was she okay? Was she telling fibs? Like was she?
I don't know. Yeah. That's really in the middle. Who probably she might have. Maybe the problem was her husband. It wasn't her. That she couldn't have kids.
Yeah.
So probably that night she was with another man.
She was with another man, and she said it was the little monk.
Little monk,
and he knew.
He knew, and then basically, and she got pregnant because actually she was with another man.
Yeah, isn't that interesting that we get presented? If that's the case, we get presented with the fiction.
Yeah,
the fictional version, which is that's cool. Yeah,
it's just like a every time to give an explanation that beside the reality. Okay, it was the little monk.
The little monk.
Okay, so that's the use, and probably that's what happened. But it's quite interesting when I read that. That's the way also Sorrentino used the little monk.
Yeah.
And especially at the end, like, okay, I'm safe. I'm actually doing the right thing. Because also when I grew up, people loves Naples, and I love Naples, but it's a very difficult city to live in. And in my teenage here, then around probably 16, 17, I start to realize that I couldn't live in that city anymore. I couldn't stand that city. It's too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
And you can't change. You know that you can change. Or there are things that you would like to change, you can't. And the only way to do it is leave Naples.
Yeah.
And that's probably the feeling. He couldn't do anything else. And the other Capuano was telling, why you want to leave Naples?
Yes,
you want to do a movie director? Look what you got here. You can make amazing movies here. Again, it's not that. It's a little bit more. And he felt like probably he had to go to have a new start. And I understand that. Anyway, I really feel like him. Like, in fact, I left Naples a bit later than him, but when I was 27 years old, I had to go.
Oh, it's the same story, I think. And before we bring the Baron back so that he and I continue with our uninformed commentary.
There is one more thing.
Yes.
How good is Tony Servillo, the actor, which is the father?
Who is kind of like the Marcello Mastroianni.
He works always with Sorrentino.
Yeah.
But I work with Tony.
Oh, really?
I know him. He's a very nice man. I don't even think he remember me.
Tony, if you're out there.
I don't know if you remember me, but his brother is a musician.
Yes.
Or a group called Avion Travel. And I edited a video clip for them that Tony directed.
Oh, wow.
So he's a very nice guy. He's not just an incredible actor. He was really kind because that was one of my first experience as an editor. And I think it was also for him was one of the first experience with video.
Wow.
In a very humble way, we worked together to put together this video clip. That was my first video clip in my life. And so it was pretty interesting experience, but it was a great experience. I never felt like nervous, like, oh my God, he's the maestro. And he never made me feel like that. So Tony is an amazing actor and also an amazing person.
He's an amazing actor. I really enjoyed him, and I've enjoyed him in other things as well.
Great Beauty.
The Great Beauty being one of them. And speaking of The Great Beauty, was there anything else other than your childhood that the
I
movie
think it's
reminded
the
of
influence that the city has. I mean, in the people. For example, in Great Beauty, Tony Servillo, again, the Geppi Gambardella, I think was his name. He was a writer. He wrote an incredible book, but not in Rome. And then he went to Rome and stopped writing. He was too distracted. So probably if I have to say some similarity, it's like sometimes this big city, they have so much influence that then distract you. It's probably the reason why also he had to leave Naples and been focusing in what he wants to do.
On himself.
On himself, because there was too much things happening around you. And that's the same probably in The Great Beauty. There was same situation. Great Beauty has been very well welcomed and around the world. He won the Oscar, but in Italy it's been quite criticized. And I find really bizarre. It's just because it's very dramatic. It's explaining a side of Italian society that probably Italians doesn't like to see. And I quite like it because it's like that. And why you need to criticize him? He was really criticized. There are people that hate him for the way he portrayed the society in Rome. But I quite like that movie. I can watch. It's like an old song that every now and then you want to listen. It's an incredible movie. I really love that one. There is there is a bit of Fellini by Sorrentino admission. He really take inspiration in some close-up faces, incredible characters.
Yeah.
Another one it could be. There is an HBO series and it's been. Based on a novel of Elena Ferrante called My Brilliant Friend, La mia amica geniale. There might be something like this because it's been shot and characters are all from Naples, and there is that side of the Neapolitan that is a bit dark. Everything looks good, but there is a bit of darkness in the background. Probably if I think about something like that, might be something that remind me that TV series, which is an incredible series. I really recommend that one.
Well, I don't reckon that Baron or myself are going to have quite as informed, it reminds me of, as that. I know I was thinking Fellini, and we might get to that in a sec. But Sal, I thank you for joining the stage here. And I don't know if it's a downgrade, but we probably should bring Baron back to close it out and get you.
It's an upgrade. It's an upgrade. Don't worry. Bye, everyone.
Baron, I feel like I haven't spoken to you for so long. How are you, mate?
Oh, dude, so good. So good, Doc. That was a history lesson in Sal's childhood that I just loved. I'm so happy we heard that. Shall we get into some of the other reminds me of, the less informed, less kind of cool, but are what we can bring to the table?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you want to start?
I'll start.
I'll just start by saying I really only have one. So if you've got like 5 again, you need to do a couple, then I'll do one, and then you can do the rest.
Yeah, I've got a few
great.
ordinary ones though. This wasn't going to be my first, but given that Sal mentioned it, let's just talk Fellini for a second.
Yes.
Have you seen much of Fellini?
No. And this is one of the problems with this film is I just felt like I came into it with very little background.
Yeah.
And so I haven't got a lot to add on that front. But please tell me.
I felt a vague sense of Fellini through especially the first half of the film.
Yeah.
The chaotic, the everyone coming together, the vivid characters, the colour, the trying desperately to find a narrative within the ridiculousness. That I felt was Fellini. And
is that also the clip of the conversation, because I just noticed in that first half, like some of those conversations, you had to be on the ball just to keep up with the captions, because they were just moving at such a pace.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, they were quick. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. But they're all quick. Sal's bloody quick sometimes.
Yeah.
They think quickly, they act quickly, the emotions change on a dime.
Yeah.
I think that's just the European way.
Yep.
And the Italian way. But yeah, that first half reminded me of I can't even tell you a film. I'm thinking maybe Amarcord, which is one of his later masterpieces. I may be wrong there, but just the vibe of parties out in the outdoors and a lot of characters coming together. It was just Fellini-esque, and I don't think anyone could counter that.
I don't know Fellini's work, but there was in those sequences in that first half, that particularly around that Sunday lunch that Sal was talking about, kind of like crazy wide angle lenses. When you're shooting groups of people and you've got someone really in the foreground and it's a wide lens and their face is just almost becomes bulbous and bizarre looking. Yeah. And that's a real style that I associate with kind of a certain period. And I wonder if that's a Fellini thing as well, because it's not really something you see often now. Kind of spaghetti westerns as well do it to a degree, with the faces.
I don't think I've ever seen a spaghetti western. How's that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Interesting.
Ouch. Okay, shut up. We could go.
The close-ups, those cuts to close-ups, that is really what remind me of Fellini, especially using also these weird characters.
Yeah.
Strong faces. That's a really Fellini style.
Yeah, that came through. Yeah,
I was thinking just generally the characters and the faces rather than the technical aspect, which I think you two have just bonded over there.
Yeah.
But given I've got more than you, I'm going to go with another one.
Please crack on, yes.
And I'm going to say Melina. Melina or Malena, Sal?
Malena,
sorry.
Oh, man, I'm being put to shame here. I don't know who that is.
Monica Bellucci. It's a rite of passage for any young man.
Yeah. yeah. I know Monica Bellucci. Okay, but go on, yeah.
Well, set in Italy somewhere. I don't think it's Naples, but it's Italy. Sicily, there you go. I'm sure there's a million other movies of teenaged Italian Sals, guys, lusting over some, 30 or 40-year-old woman of the town. So Monica Bellucci is the sex symbol of the town, and there's this young bloke and others that are just lusting over her. That's all I remember of it, but that's pretty much the same as this film. And
Patrizia.
Yes, and I'm sure in my memory I've got other instances of young Italian Sals, just being obsessed over some sex symbol.
Like I was saying, I didn't have a lot that popped to mind, but the one that really strongly came to mind is The Big Blue by Luc Besson.
I haven't seen The Big Blue.
Yeah, right. Well, one of the early films that I really fell in love with, I think there's a director's cut and a theatrical cut, but one of them's 4 hours long. It's a long film, and it's got Jean Reno in it.
Yes.
Who I believe he might be Spanish, but anyway,
sounds more French than Spanish.
He grew up in French Morocco, I think it is, and he speaks French, but I think his parents are Spanish. Whatever. He's playing an Italian guy called Enzo in this film, and his portrayal of Enzo is incredible. Like, it's one of those ones that'll just stick with you forever once you see him playing this Italian, kind of chubby, spoiled Italian guy who's a talented freediver, still has his mum travel everywhere with him, feeding him pasta like everywhere he goes. And the little town that they're in really reminded me of this. The way the whole way through this film they're just jumping in the water. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
That's like seems to be a real theme, and it's there in The Big Blue as well. Of course,
well, that's the Mediterranean.
It is. I guess it's the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
But it struck me though, like, you don't see that in films very often, where like every handful of scenes they're jumping in the water. It's interesting. It's about the place, and also the wildness of the characters that Luc Besson brings to this. They're all characters. You got the same close-ups, the big faces, the wildness of it all is all throughout it. And it's just a great film. It's a great film.
The water, I think that's a cultural thing too. Yeah. So I'm half Mediterranean for our viewers at home. It's just part of life if you're near the coast in that part of the world when it's all warm and beautiful.
Yeah.
And it made me think, especially in that scene where Patricia gets all her gear off and everyone else is just sitting there in their, Speedos, and everyone's unself-conscious. Like, yes, she's naked, so they're a bit funny about that. Yeah. But otherwise, everyone's unself-conscious about being half naked together. And that says something about the culture around the ocean in those sorts of places.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With us, we go to the beach and we sort of, think, my goodness, who's looking at me?
I'm always afraid I'm going to blind somebody at the beach with my pale skin.
You're right. My turn, is it?
Yes, please.
Irreversible by what's his name? Lars von Trier.
Yeah. Okay. You got to explain that one.
I thought early in Hand of God when Patricia has, gets one can out and we get all that sexualized imagery, but it's alongside the imagery of abuse, so it's never a comfortable experience.
No.
Like it's not a sexy scene.
No.
So it's dealing with sex, but it's not sexy.
Right. Yes.
And that reminded me of Irreversible. So this is a Monica Bellucci theme, but in that movie, obviously she's a sex goddess, and everyone thinks she's gorgeous, but it really takes sex in that film and looks at the dark side of it. And there's a rape scene that's quite pivotal. The intersection of sex and violence in an uncomfortable way just reminded me.
That's interesting.
Of Irreversible.
Lars von Trier is sort of the opposing force of what sex is in this film. It's like you've got, this is all about coming of age, and I guess sex is like a part of the coming to age here, of age. Whereas with Lars von Trier, in a few of his films, he's looking at the dark side of it, just looking at the more sort of perverse or the twisted natures of it as well. So it's interesting.
And I don't think the Hand of God is quite as clear cut for all audiences.
Yeah.
Because yes, there's the coming of age.
Yeah.
But implicit in that coming of age is the role of women and the treatment of women, and
that's true.
The fact that what is a sexual moment for Fabietto is actually a violent moment for Patricia.
Great call. It's a very male perspective, isn't it?
It's a very male perspective, but the women are all wound up in it as well. As you said, the Countess, this is not enjoyable for her, the scene that she has. Well, mate, no, it probably is. Okay.
Well, there's kind of a power play going on there as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But it's for his benefit.
Yes.
It's very male-centric as far as who's winning here.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
we like her for the kindness, but it's still putting the bloke ahead of her.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Still like the opposite of selfish. What's the opposite of selfish?
Unselfish, so.
It's like really, it's the feel of giving. So,
yeah. When you add all the cultural significance of it all, it's ultimately a positive one, but it's hard to untangle if you're not in the culture.
Yeah, I think so.
Look, one more thing around culture. Long time ago, I read a book of a Neapolitan writer, and he explained his first experience with a woman, and was actually with prostitute. Brothels were open in Italy. They became outlaw probably in the 50s, 60s. But anyway, the first experience was brother, and was the father bringing there. So it's like your first moment needs to be like the way it's explained in Sorrentino. Let's get out, do it, and don't think about it.
Get it out of the way, man.
Yeah, that's some old school fathering right there.
It is. Look, maybe we could have benefited from it too.
Maybe.
You got any others?
No, really, I did feel like without knowing Fellini, without knowing the Italian back catalogue that led to this moment, like I was a bit was floundering a little bit. I was so happy that Sal could bring some perspective to that time and era.
I'll give you one more novelty one.
Yeah.
Please don't take this seriously, anyone at home, but I'm going to say don't tell mom. Don't tell mom the babysitter's dead.
Babysitter's dead. I need you to explain this to me. And I love the way he said mom. Please say that more.
No, I'll never say that. I should have just said mum, yeah?
Yeah.
Don't tell mum the babysitter's dead.
Explain this to me because I'm lost at the moment.
Oh, it's quite simple. It's not profound, but it's young people coming to terms with the parental figures just carking it halfway through.
Right.
So I don't remember anything about that film other than it was fairly big in some young time of my life.
Yeah.
And Christina Applegate, I remember, was the babysitter. The babysitter died, and then all hell kind of broke loose. And how does everyone deal with the fact that the guardian is no longer there?
Yeah.
So it wasn't the parents, but there was that moment in the middle of the film when suddenly, you know, this Fabio guy is let loose and he doesn't have, you know, all that parental guidance.
Wonderful. Do you think that Sorrentino was sitting around one day?
Yes.
And was like, remember that movie?
Don't tell mama.
Don't tell mom.
Don't tell mama.
Mama.
Well, what's mum, Sal? Mama. Don't tell mama the babysitter is Morte.
Remember that?
Motto.
I think I have an interesting take on this. I think this could be the center of my film, the midpoint, you might say.
Yeah, that's it. It's all Christina Applegate, Married with Children, leads to this film. So that's
awesome.
They're the influences. I think we've done it.
I think that last one nailed it. That was the reference. So good.
Baron, it's been a pleasure.
It sure has.
I think a special pleasure. Thank you, Salvatore, the maestro, for those insights.
Yes, indeed. And that is episode, what is it? 54 down.
It was at 54. We said it at the start. Must be 54.
We're almost up to 55. That's all I can say.
We're almost getting a show together here.
I think we're well on the way.
Okay, great.
Cool. See you next time.
See ya.